Scenery is a purely personal thing. What I did with this one was to plan the track and then get a rough idea of what I wanted to do with the scenery. It's always difficult to get an exit from a layout, and one idea is to have a couple of tunnels. This is basically a junction, so you come in from a different part of the country in here and go out to somewhere else there, which is all make pretend. This is miles away. And to do that, I thought a nice scenic break would be to have two tunnel mouths here so that this was completely self-contained. And with the back scene, it forms a nice little 3D picture, basically. The first thing to put in was the platform. And this I made up with balsa wood, which was scribed for the planks. Each plank's about 10 foot long. So I scribed all those and then glued the balsa wood in and then painted it the right colour so it looks a sort of brown and weathered using weathering powders. After you've got the platform in, the next thing to do would be the ballasting. Ballasting has to be done fairly neatly, otherwise your layout won't run. There are certain things you mustn't do with ballasting, and one of them is to get the ballast up the sides of the rails. They've got to be kept clear all the time. And the other thing is to make sure that the points can still throw once you've ballasted. The ballast I use is an extra fine ballast. Because the 00 ballast actually looks like boulders. It's okay for O gauge, but no good for 00 or smaller. So this is an extra fine ballast from a firm called Jarvis, Javis, and it does look very nice when it's put down. The idea is to sprinkle it very gently and evenly and work it in between the sleepers, and also very carefully in between the points here, so that I do the insides of the rails first, making sure that it's nice and even and not lumpy. Then I do the bits of track in between the track here and get that nice and flat, again making sure that the points operate. And then the shoulders. This is the shoulder, which is the outside of the track. The track is laid directly onto the baseboard. I don't use any cork or foam underlay because I don't really think it's necessary. And when you ballast and glue, it goes hard anyway, so you don't get any sound deadening. So having got the shoulders down and everything looking neat, you do it in sections. You can do this section here up to here, then a bit. Once it's looking very neat, mix up PVA glue, 1 part PVA glue to 3 parts water with a good dash of washing up liquid. Mix it up in a jar like that. Using a pipette, you then get the mixture and liberally apply it onto the ballast. You'll see it soak in, and you want it to get it fairly well soaked so that the whole thing goes hard when it's dry. This is actually rock hard. You can turn this layout upside down and none of it will fall off. Again, you have to make sure that the points are free. So once you've glued it, it's an idea to move the points backwards and forwards, and that will move any ballast that's in the way to the side so that it allows the points to throw. Once it's dry, you mustn't do anything until it's dry, and it's a good 24 hours for it to dry. Once it's dry, try running the locos all over the layout. Basically because sometimes glue gets in between the rail and the blade and you don't get contact. So if you make sure that these are cleaned in here of glue, it forms a little film. Once you're happy that the whole layout is ballasted, then you can start doing the scenery. For this, I decided that it was going to be a sort of slightly industrial, but sort of a neatish layout. This is basically one I built to go to exhibition to allow children to run. So I made it simple and they run it under tuition from my wife and I, and they seem to really enjoy it. This here is a piece of 00, which was to give an idea of size, because this being narrow gauge, as you can see, this locomotive is quite tiny. Even though they're the same 4mm scale, it's quite tiny compared to the wagon. So this was to give an idea of scale, basically. This is a disused siding, and that gets parked on there, and it's sort of a bit overgrown. The next thing I did was to work out where the buildings were going. There's a range of buildings on this layout, and these ones here are laser cut. They're American, but I didn't think they looked actually too bad on the layout. I thought they sort of blended in, because with narrow gauge you get anything goes basically. This is a Wills kit of a signal box, which it doesn't take long to make or paint. This is a little Hornby hut, and this was scratch built. So you've got a range of everything on the layout. I normally have a coach which sits here and a little taxi, and this is I finally found a use for this lorry. I've had it 45 years, and well, it's finally found a little home, bless it. Now, next thing to do, I painted the edge of the ballast. This is called a cess, just as it's a side of the ballast. I painted that sort of nondescript brown, just to delineate the edge. So all the way round, you can see that it's painted a brown colour. That delineates the ballast. Oh, one thing I must mention just before you do the ballast is to put the buffer stops in. They need to go in before the ballast, otherwise you have trouble getting them to sit. Especially in 00, there's little feet on them. So if you fit the buffer stops down onto the track, you can then ballast over the feet, and that holds them in position. They do clip on, but it just makes them that much more secure. They can be painted after they're installed. I painted these after they were in. The next thing I did was to paint various areas grey, here and here, different shades. This is where the buildings were going, so they're a slightly darker shade. I put this little platform in there, and then having got the buildings in, I then darkened or dirtied all the grey area. You can use paint or weathering powders or whatever you like for that. It's all to taste. With the buildings in, I then put the grass in. This is Woodland Scenics. You can get various different Woodland Scenics grasses. F52 is this hedging. You can get T49, which is grass, and you can get lots of other different colourings, which are from dark soil right up to very light grass, yellows. This is T49, which is an average grass. To get the grass to sit, I put neat PVA glue in the area that I wanted. So only one section at a time, otherwise it dries out and you can't actually get the scenery to stick. Then poured the flock powder onto it, and by doing that, pressed the flock powder down into the PVA glue, and also sprinkled some dark soil on there to give it some texture. Now I did the same along here and all round there, and this bit along here and here. It just, once you start covering the layout, then it starts looking much more, well, whole. It doesn't look anything until you start the scenery. For this hillside here, I use green art paper, which allows you glue it at the top here and then cut strips, and that allows you to get whatever slope you want. These tunnel mouths and the tunnels inside went in first, so you position those and cut them to make sure that your largest bit of stock actually runs through, which I didn't on this one, but never mind, they were supposed to be different. So having got those tunnels in, they're then glued in with Yoo-hoo. The wings are put in. They were painted grey beforehand, and then the tunnel mouths are weathered. Having got that in, you can then use your art card, cut into strips, very, very thin strips, glued there and bent over and glued at the bottom, so that you can get this nice slope. The Yoo-hoo goes off quite quickly, and having done that, you can then paint the PVA glue onto these areas here, and again sprinkle or throw the flock powder onto these areas and pat them in so that they stick. One thing you can do using this method is you get a lot of excess, so you can vacuum it up with a small vacuum cleaner and use the excess if you want to. That needs a bit of time to dry, but as you can see, it's only very thin art card, green, but it's actually, with the PVA glue, it goes quite solid, and there's no movement in that whatsoever. This then makes the hillside, and I put the rest of some more F52 here, sort of teased out to look like gorse or bushes or whatever, and along the back here as well, and in various places along here to look as if it's sort of a bit unkempt. Here it's there as a break basically for this fence and to hide the edging. The fencing is Pico, painted sort of reddy brown, and this fencing here is a standard Hornby fencing, which again is painted reddy brown, and the fencing actually gives you an idea of limit. It moved it forward so that if it's right up against the back scene, it takes your eyes off the back scene and doesn't make it appear so deep. So by moving it forward, it gives the layout a bit more depth. There's a couple of lamps in here as well, which are always handy, especially when they keel over a bit. With regard to people, it's nice to get little groups rather than having them dotted around. So I've got a couple there talking to each other. There's a signalman going into his box. There's a very posh chap there with the porter, and two chatting there. And so they're dotted around in little groups. And all of this is readily available, apart from where buildings are, but they're kits, but the people you can buy. This here is a little grouping. This is where the loco coals, and you've got real coal there, some sacks, and then there are barrels and various things dotted around, all things that are readily available, as I said, and some furniture, some station luggage here. The other thing I've added to give the layout a little bit of height is trees. As you can see, there are 3 trees here, various sizes. They're standard woodland scenic trees out of the box, and I haven't done anything to them. They look quite reasonable. Probably a tree person would say they weren't right, but for me they look fine. One last thing I must mention is the back scene. Now, I'm not an artist. A friend of mine painted this. He's a professional artist. And as you can see, it does extend the layout. Here we have it sort of closed in with woods, and they come down to a valley, and the layout looks as if you've got a view right into the valley itself. I wouldn't attempt to paint the back scene because I couldn't get a finish like this. So this friend of mine kindly offered to do it for me. And if you feel like having a go, a friend of mine who doesn't claim to be an artist has painted a very, very nice back scene using a technique off the television, and it does look good. But I'm not really confident of doing that, so I got a friend of mine to do this. But you don't know till you practice. So as with all of this, it's trial and error. Do what you can, and if it doesn't look right, change it.